When Alan Wake first came out back in 2010, I was 11 years old, but this game really intrigued me from the trailers and some of the gameplay, and I remember absolutely loving the game as I first played it, no matter how many nightmares it gave me. But being 11 years old, the only people I knew who played video games were my friends in school, and none of them wanted to play anything other than Call of Duty, so for a long time I was convinced that I was the only person who ever played Alan Wake. I had no one to talk to about the game, so eventually it faded from my mind. Then, a few years ago, I was in for the surprise of a lifetime when I found out that I wasn't, in fact, the only person who played the game, and a lot of people who played the game absolutely loved it, and now we're getting a sequel. This inspired me to replay Alan Wake and its sequel, or DLC, I'm not too sure, but it's called American Nightmare. Playing these games today only confirms what I thought when I was 11, that these games are absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited that we're going to be able to continue Alan's story in a sequel and see what he's been up to, but after researching a bit about Alan Wake, there's a lot of the story that I missed out on. Today I'm going to be going over the legacy of Alan Wake through the games and the fascinating history of this character, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. For those who have never played the game, there's going to be some spoilers for Alan Wake and Alan Wake American Nightmare, so you've been warned. Here we go. Alan Wake is about a usually very out-of-breath man named Alan Wake. He's a very successful writer, but has had writer's block for the past 2 years. His wife Alice decides to take him to a small remote town of Bright Falls in Washington, so that way he can work on his next book. Alan was under the impression that they were just going to Bright Falls for vacation, so when he finds out Alice brought him there to continue working, he storms off. But the cabin they're staying at is in the middle of Cauldron Lake. A supernatural presence takes Alice, and as Alan runs back to save her, he blacks out, waking up a week later. He tries to put the puzzle together of what's happened, finding manuscript pages for a book that he has no memory of writing. What's even worse is these manuscript pages of a horror story are coming to life. The game follows Alan on his adventures around Bright Falls, trying his hardest to find and save Alice and fight this supernatural entity known as the Dark Presence. In Alan Wake American Nightmare, Alan has to fight a version of himself that's been taken over by the Dark Presence, known as Mr. Scratch. Alan is stuck in a time loop and has to try and break free from it to defeat Mr. Scratch and reunite with Alice. Though this game was pretty great, it's really more of a DLC and not really part of the actual story of Alan Wake, as it's formatted like an episode of Night Springs, the fictional TV show in the universe that's basically a copy of The Twilight Zone. Those are very, very brief synopsises of the game. Believe me, there's a lot more to the story than I explained there. The story of Alan Wake is very reminiscent of Stephen King, Twin Peaks, and The Twilight Zone. All of those inspirations very clearly seen while playing the game. It's very confusing if you look really deep into the lore of everything, and has so many different layers you can peel back and look deeper into. The gameplay of Alan Wake is your pretty standard third-person shooter, but it has a unique element in the fact that you have to shine your flashlight on the enemy to break their shield before you can kill them. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's different from a lot of other third-person shooters and makes the gameplay stand out. While Alan Wake is definitely focused on telling a grounded supernatural story, you're restrained a bit by the combat because they want to make it believable enough that this pretty ordinary guy can fight these enemies with the weapon he finds. In American Nightmare, they take this gameplay and throw out the grounded aspect, allowing you access to bigger and better weapons and even some different enemies that embrace their supernatural aspect. At the end of Alan Wake, Alan has to fight the Dark Presence in order to save his wife Alice, who's been stuck at the bottom of Cauldron Lake in an alternate dark reality. Think of something like the Upside Down from Stranger Things. In saving Alice, Alan is stuck in the alternate reality and forced to write his manuscript to try and help the Dark Presence escape, because Cauldron Lake has a special ability for creative people to blend reality and fiction, which would in essence help the Dark Presence escape. In a DLC for Alan Wake, he's stuck in the alternate reality with a crazed version of himself, not so much like the evil Mr. Scratch, but a crazed and irrational version known as Irrational Al. Seeing this version of himself himself that he doesn't want to turn into, Alan sits back down at the typewriter to write out his new book titled Return in an attempt to escape this alternate dark reality. Now, all of this sounds very much like the plot of a movie, not a video game. I think this is part of the reason why Alan Wake wasn't successful at launch. Back in 2010, there wasn't really a demand for complex, story-driven games that there is now. Now, there's plenty of these complex narrative games that could easily have been the plot for a movie or TV show. Because of Alan Wake's story and how great it is, it's caused a resurgence in popularity today, getting a remaster and a sequel on the way. It also probably didn't help the sales numbers that Alan Wake was only an Xbox 360 exclusive. The remaster was released both on PlayStation and Xbox, and Alan Wake 2 will also be released on both platforms. When this remaster came out, I researched a bit more about Alan Wake and found out that he's lived on for this past decade with mentions in Remedy's other games, more specifically the game Control and Quantum Break. In Quantum Break, right at the beginning of the game, our protagonist finds and sees a trailer for Alan Wake's Return, the story that he had been writing at the end of his game. Whether this is just a nod to the game or if this is actually Alan trying to communicate with the world is unknown, but Alan Wake definitely exists in this world as we see his books and even a chalkboard trying to explain Alan Wake's disappearance. There's also someone playing the game Alan Wake in Quantum Break, but I think this is more of just a nod to their previous game than anything else. In the game Control, we get a more substantial piece to the puzzle that is Alan Wake. We learn about the Federal Bureau of Control, who are a secret organization that specialize in altered world events. Alan Wake and Bright Falls are both mentioned as altered world events, and the game's protagonist, Jesse Faden, has a vision of Alan Wake still writing his manuscript Return 10 years after we last saw him. This clearly means that all of Remedy's games have a connected universe, and at the center of it all is Alan Wake. This also means that Alan has been missing for quite some time, still trying to escape the alternate universe he's trapped in. That's basically where we lead into Alan Wake 2, which is very secretive and we don't have a lot of information about it just yet. There was once an Alan Wake 2 game that was scrapped because of sales numbers of the first game, and the game has apparently taken on many different changes, and so far it all sounds like it's for the better. I mentioned earlier that Alan Wake has a story that sounds more like a movie or TV show, and apparently AMC agrees with me because they've secured the rights to make an Alan Wake TV show. There's no news or anything about the show other than they have the rights, but maybe sometime in the next year, or maybe alongside the release of Alan Wake 2, we'll get more information. Alan Wake definitely falls under the category of a cult classic, and I really couldn't be happier that we're finally getting a sequel. There's a lot of questions remaining after the ending of the first game, and things like seeing him still writing the manuscript in Control and Quantum Break only make Alan's story more interesting, knowing that he's still been out there all these years waiting for his chance to escape. If you haven't played Alan Wake, I strongly urge you to do so. It's one of my absolute favorite games of all time and definitely worth playing. I didn't go too far into detail about the game, and I promise you I left a ton of information out so that way you can experience it for yourself. If this video does well and you want to see me make more videos about Alan Wake, let me know that down in the comments below, as well as your own thoughts on the game. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. If you do, then I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.